So now, we have a problem.
Now you might be asking, Ryan, why is Pookie Bear slapping a guy who regularly cosplays as Homelander? Professional wrestling, that's why. But how we got here is, well, insane.
Let's create the Dirty Harry because that's who Black Adam is. He doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But he gives a fuck. And the final thing to do was to listen to the fans.
We tried desperately to get Henry Cavill in the first movie.
And Superman.
That would have tied me in to the JSA with Hawkman and with Cyclone, and we were thwarted.
I think there's a mass appeal to this guy. The hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change. I enjoyed saying that. It kind of started some rumblings. Then I transitioned that to, feels like there's a new era in the DC universe that's getting ready to happen.
Hey, we're not going to continue the world of Black Adam. Why, especially when there's such a successful opening? What's the reason or the reasons for the stopping of Black Adam?
Because the hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change.
The year is 2022. The pandemic's grasp on the world was starting to disappear. Nacho fries were probably back at Taco Bell. The MCU's popularity was waning, and DC put Black Adam all over everything. Yes, the Shazam villain, or I guess the Shazam villain turned Superman villain, but mostly an anti-hero. A B or even C level DC character was the marketing dream. Black Adam being this big project in DC was because of who was attached to it. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Now, Young Rock was already a proven box office success, making even the worst looking movies profitable. So putting him in a superhero movie makes complete sense. This is inarguably a big deal for DC. To say they have attached one of the biggest movie stars in the world to their production is huge. This should be a slam dunk of an idea, and at least a commercial stance. Also of note, The Rock was attached to play the character of Black Adam for about 15 years at this point, going from a Shazam movie to his own solo movie. The Rock was a draw, brother. However, we should maybe pause on the overall look of the story for now in order to give proper explanation over what happened. We need to look at the state of DC Studios themselves. The DCEU was DC's attempt to make their own cinematic universe, after the smashing success that was the MCU, and DC went about things a little differently. Where Marvel was emulating strong one-note characters and charisma that makes even the most dickish of superheroes pass as likable, DC was busy playing catch-up, going for a more melodramatic feel that wanted more CG spectacle, less about character and more about the action, as well as just adapting their most iconic stories as quickly as possible. Going from a Superman solo movie to The Dark Knight Returns and Death of Superman is certainly a choice. Where Marvel felt like some maniac in a baseball cap had planned everything out, DC felt unfocused. It felt like it was rushing to these big moments, but without any reason to care. Making a Justice League film when you haven't introduced half of the fucking team yet, but you wanted a Suicide Squad movie first? Like, it's that, to be frank, bad decision making that made it hard for DC to capture an audience the same way Marvel did. During the filming of Justice League, Zack Snyder left the production in a very difficult situation. With the movie almost finished, DC brought in Joss Whedon to finish it. What comes next is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Hello, no.
Weirdly, DC has that honored distinction twice with me.
Oh, that's hot.
And other than the Snyder Cut, that was it for the only person with a sense of direction of where this universe was going. Now, I don't like the Zack Snyder vision of DC. I think it was all going in a direction where it wasn't going to work. And hearing him in interviews since, it was clear he didn't really understand these characters. And with him gone, that was the only vision that the DCEU really had. Without a sequel to Justice League even planned, Snyder was gone for good. But this is also where the best pure DCEU movies are. Aquaman, Birds of Prey, and Shazam all followed. Movies that had a certain heart and that were honestly just a fun time. It was like DC was finding a new identity. An identity that was a lot like the MCU's, but with different types of flair. You had something like James Wan's direction in Aquaman, and that stood out a lot from a 2019 Marvel film. Then COVID happened, and subsequently the DCEU's lack of direction was still very apparent. Wonder Woman 1984 is a bad movie. The internet was still holding out this hope for a Snyder return, so much so that the fans the DCEU made were turning against it because it wasn't Zack Snyder. With the release of the Snyder Cut, That was a supposed end of Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill. Now it was a DC universe without the two most popular heroes, directionless as ever and now lacking any real substance to the stories. Why did these movies exist at this point, when there was nothing really happening? When the powers at Warner Bros. Were struggling themselves to get anything cohesive together, let alone catch up to Marvel. But 2021 came and went, and so did releasing things onto streaming, thank God. It was time for a little soft reset to the DCEU, for something to come in and change things, for the hierarchy of power in the DC universe to change.
Do you smell what The Rock is cooking? Ha!
The Rock.
Shut up, bitch!
One of the biggest stars in Hollywood, a huge success in the world of professional wrestling, who captured people's hearts because of his sheer charisma that he possessed. No one is a better politician than young Rock. And in 2007, it was announced that this up-and-coming actor was going to play Black Adam. And then nothing for several years before the DCEU begins to take shape. Meetings with The Rock happened dating back as far as 2013, the same year Man of Steel released, with The Rock reiterating that he would be playing Black Adam. And in 2017, the announcement was made. Black Adam would be getting his own solo movie. A decision that is frankly odd. Like, I think as it stands, there's very few villains and even anti-heroes where a solo movie would benefit. Black Adam had been largely viewed as a Shazam villain. However, with a backstory that spans a lot of Egyptian history and mythology, there was probably a story you could tell. And again, in a logistics sense, getting an actor as big as The Rock, it makes sense you want to give him his own movie. Put his face on the big ass popcorn buckets and big gulps and magically make a giant profit.
Fuck your story.
A profit that DC needed at this point. So the solo movie was a go, and despite the tease of Black Adam in the Shazam movie, he was nowhere to be seen. Johnson had previously mentioned that making a Shazam movie and a Black Adam movie would probably result in some weird versus type movie. I mean, whatever gets us to the end goal, I guess. But it seemed like Dwayne had some other ideas. A struggling DCEU, a studio that so desperately needed to make a profit on a movie, and a lead actor with an idea. So now should be a fun time to mention that there may or may not have been a contract in Rock movies that he cannot lose a fight. He cannot look weak in some battles, which is funny because that's something that like Hulk Hogan would say back in the 90s while he was wrestling. It was this sort of intertwining of The Rock's two worlds, where it was almost like he saw the same get book strong philosophy and people will react a certain way. And as dumb as this sounds, maybe it's hard to argue. Like, it is incredibly stupid and kind of dumbs down the art that film is, but look at this track record. I mean, fucking Rampage made money. The Fast and Furious movies make a stupid amount of money each time. And there's 3 fucking actors that can't lose a fight in those. It was hard to see any sort of negative from one of the biggest Hollywood stars in the world take a major role in a cinematic universe that was trying so hard to find its footing. Now I can harp on how fucking stupid it is to make Black Adam the crazy central figure in your universe with, I don't know, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, just to name a few examples. But to a studio exec, this must have sounded perfect. Who gives a shit if the nerds are mad? We have the fucking Rock on our side, and he can sell us on anything. So like any other girl boss, The Rock tried to take over DC Studios. I mean, I'm sure we've all been there before. I'm sure there was a great financial benefit he would get if Black Adam made X amount of money, and that he was for some reason given some sort of creative power, which means the new most important character in the DC universe dropped. Now let's say you. Yes, you were in charge of soft rebooting the DCEU. How would you do it? Would you first re-establish Superman, the most iconic superhero ever, and build that way? Or start with a Flash bullshit reboot? Or do you start over with the Shazam villain Black Adam? I don't understand why The Rock was so hell-bent on playing Black Adam for 15 fucking years. I don't get it. Does he have some underlying love for the character? Because he portrays the character with as much charisma as drywall.
But why? Why would you do that?
And like, here's what Black Adam actually looked like at the time The Rock was, well, young Rock. Was he really your favorite, Dwayne? Out of everyone, this was your favorite! It is baffling that this is the movie that was made to kind of reset everything at DC. And it's not like they didn't know this would be the reset film, as the Suicide Squad was mostly unconnected, and during 2020, DC was sort of cleaning house on everyone. Which led to this film about some bullshit that was supposed to be a new beginning for DC. Except it wasn't that. It wasn't some new beginning because the fuckery that was The Rock's Hostile Takeover brought back Henry Cavill. Why? I get it. I do. I truly get it from a commercial reason. Here, you have one of the biggest Hollywood stars going up against the most iconic superhero of all time. I get this. But why is it so bad? Why is all of this so bad? The Rock was trying to strong-arm his way to the top of DC Studios, and he was going to take the character of Black Adam with him. In one of the most bizarre things I think I have ever seen, the lead up to the release of Black Adam was this whack-ass propaganda campaign. Do you all remember mid-2000s marketing? Like, I have vivid memories of the ad campaign for Revenge of the Sith. We're talking toys, Burger King ads, video game tie-ins, this type of guerrilla marketing that has kind of gone away in many cases. Like, sometimes the release of a movie could just sneak up on you. But Warner Brothers so desperately needed this movie to not only make a profit for the sake of their struggling universe, but because Warner Brothers themselves are slowly inching towards death's door every day. Where 2022 was supposed to be the year of DC, Warner Brothers was forced to delay The Flash, Aquaman 2, and cancel Batgirl because they needed a tax break. God, I fucking hate this company. The year of DC became now known as that one time The Rock tried to take over the entire studio. Let's start at the start of the year. DC releases a Super Bowl promo showing all the different movies they had coming out at the time. Keep in mind, 2 of these movies will be delayed until 2023, but the reason this should be brought up is because this was the first Super Bowl trailer Warner Brothers had released in 15 years. And then, from here, you have what appears to be an attempt at a viral marketing campaign, where taglines are thrown around like it's Monday Night Raw, and The Rock is doing his catchphrase of the month.
Like a big fat bowl of Fruity Pebbles.
From Roblox, to the changing of hierarchy, to Fortnite, to Mr. Beast?
I assembled 100 people. And now 100 Black Adam.
This attempt at viral marketing was abundant. Black Adam is even in Warner Brothers' Smash clone. To put that in perspective, he was in it before the fucking Joker. But when you get sick of eating your Black Adam Big Bacon Carl at Carl's Jr., and when it's time to finally watch this thing that is being marketed like it's the biggest film event in the last 2 decades, what do you get as a final product? Well, not a good one.
It's about drive, it's about power. We stay hungry, we devour.
As an actual film, Black Adam is unremarkable and mostly boring with characters you won't remember a week after you've seen it, and it's stupid. The plot is stupid and bloated, the writing is pretty fucking bad.
No, what you are is a neo-imperialist enforcer.
I don't care. I really don't care.
None of the comedy lands, and it's sometimes nauseating to look at. But other than that, pretty good. The movie consists of a disinterested Dwayne, DD if you will, doing something different than a normal Rock performance. He's boring. He's not the only boring person though. No, this movie features a whole cast of them. Everyone in this movie has 2 goals. Spout exposition at me like I'm supposed to remember things that have never happened.
And I don't want my friend to die.
I learned this trick from an old friend.
See you around, old friend.
Been out of action for a little while, but I can't do this without him.
And then the other goal, make it all as flat as possible. While rewatching this movie, I jotted down the phrase, reminds me of a mid-2000s superhero movie, a la Fantastic Four, without any of the charm. And that's crazy to me, because The Rock is not the best actor. He's not the greatest storyteller, but if there's one thing he has, it's charm, it's charisma, it's, dare I say, aura. Oh god, I'm making myself sick here. The Rock factor is a monkey's paw, right? On one hand, you get a proven box office success. You get the closest thing Hollywood has seen to a fully fledged movie star since, like, Stallone. This clause that The Rock cannot lose a fight, though, makes it really hard to get into a superhero movie because the character he is playing doesn't really face any problems. The Rock feels like he contractually has to be the coolest person in the film. He gets to say all the silly one-liners, he gets to make his silly little faces, he gets to fling people across cities, he rips Satan in half. I mean, this guy is fucking cool, but it's all a little dumb. It's like that scene in the original X-Men where they are all ashamed of their comic counterpart, where this is serious and these guys are cool. This movie wants to paint Black Adam as the coolest character in the fucking world, yet he's still outshined by Dr. Fate on coolness level, at least. This movie tells you everything. It acts like a sequel to a film that doesn't exist. You're told that Black Adam ensures hope to the people of Kahndaq, but it's hardly ever shown how, unless they just fucking love killing. The thing is, this movie fails as a way to get you to care about a character that, quite frankly, no one really knows about. I will not sit here and tell you that I know a lot about Black Adam, or even really know anything about the character, but now the character is just a fucking meme to me. But you know what I do know about Black Adam? He isn't Thanos. He's not like a Superman villain. He's not gonna rival the Justice League. He rivals these fucking dweebs. Black Adam didn't single-handedly kill the DCEU, but it was the final nail in the coffin. It was the thing that made everyone go, well, we should probably reboot now. This movie was so directionless that it made the directionless Warner Brothers start looking for an actual direction, because this shit wasn't working, and The Rock claims it did! I want to talk about the plot of this movie as best I can. The movie wants to be a message about heroism and the different forms it might take, but it just evolves into the most generic, laughably good versus bad stuff there is. I mean, the main villain literally looks like Satan. Oh, he's basically supposed to be, huh? The movie wants to talk about oppression and how people can stand up for it, but to get you there, you have to endure one of the worst POV characters I have ever had to sit through. The skateboard kid in Black Adam is like a mix between the fangirl side of Kamala Khan and the most generic revolutionary character out there. He doesn't talk like a person, he spouts garbage in the most monotone way imaginable. There is no life in those eyes. And I don't want to dog on the actor because I don't think you need this plot period in the movie. I think Hawkman could have been the POV character. I think you could have gotten away with deleting a half of this movie and it would have been better. It's a film that acts like it has something to say, but in the end just doesn't. Right, what does the character of Black Adam really learn? What do any of these characters learn? It's a movie without really stakes, without a heart to it, and I don't blame the writers or directors because I don't know what they had to put up with. If this was the movie that was basically made by committee from a list of producers, I don't know. But it's not even distinct by DCEU standards. It is so boring for the most part, with hints of a good film in there, that if maybe they didn't have to pay the Rock price, maybe it would have turned out better, but that's a crazy hypothetical, and a little too much on the speculation train. So if you can get through a terribly paced, mostly boring 2 acts, you will see that this movie loses its fucking mind. I'm talking the most unsubtle scene of all time. Truly, Dwayne, how can one man have all that power? The birth of Satan himself, Dr. Fate killing himself for seemingly no reason. This goofy ass CG of The Rock as a thin man, and he looks so funny, like it's Uncanny Valley levels of just bad. The stupid flashbacks in the most ridiculous way imaginable.
But he couldn't save himself from the King's assassins.
It's this mystery box style of storytelling that makes you not engaged but confused. Like, did we really need to see everyone's version of these scenes with reused shots? And like, I'm not gonna judge reused shots because I do that too, but I'm a shitty YouTuber with access to Premiere. I'm not working on the $100 million franchise. It's just funny. Instead of being a mid-2000s movie with zero charm, like it is for the most part, it has all the charm of a bad superhero movie. A ridiculous plot, ridiculous moments. I mean, The Rock finally showing me something. Zombies!
Zombies.
There's fucking zombies in this movie! It all culminates in the least inspiring speech maybe ever put to film.
Hey, what are you all standing around for? This is our chance!
And then, you know, The Rock kills Satan, so that's cool of him. For 2/3, this movie is unremarkable, but he leaves me with such an impression that I think this is the perfect example of what the DCEU is. Mostly bland, over-dramatized epics that are nothing more than silly comic book movies that are more alike to Daredevil than like the cookie-cutter world of the MCU. And I'm not gonna argue that one way of doing things is more interesting than another, because comic book movies are stupid, and it just depends on what you want out of them. Like, if you want the MCU formula, fantastic. If you want the camp and movies that act way more serious than they actually are, I mean, the DCU is pretty amazing in that way. So like, I'd recommend the movie, and I also wouldn't because it kind of is a drag to get through. But all of that said, I think there's a good movie in here. Somewhere, there are signs throughout the movie of a really good story. There are signs of a really neat plot, a story about how the world is split into good and bad and is looked at in absolutes instead of a spectrum. The argument the film is trying to make is that the JSA, this militant group sent to liberate the world, is no better than the psychotic killer that is Black Adam. The problem though, the movie isn't smart enough to convey this plot in a way that makes a lick of sense. I think the worst part of this movie, other than the acting, the writing, the annoying kid, there is a semblance of a good story here that is split up into one decently interesting story and one not great story. Bad, actually. You have the pretty interesting debate of the JSA and Black Adam, and then the stuff with, Kadak, Karlak, Sabak! Holy shit, that was embarrassing. I literally watched the movie yesterday. The thing is, the movie kind of fumbles itself because of these two plot lines, to the point where there's parts of the film where I'm like, oh, Dwayne does want me to just kill people. Which again, there's something deep in there that would have created an interesting moral dilemma, but everyone just agrees with Black Adam after a while. There's no debate at all, actually. Dr. Fate acts as the bridge between the two sides of the coin, but he does so in a way where it feels like he's saying, yeah, let's fucking kill all of them. And I don't think that's what the movie wants. The movie ends with the denouncing of godhood, the throne that Black Adam sits on, but it doesn't feel earned. Actually, nothing in this movie feels earned because there is too much going on. And if you cut out either of the halves of the movie, the themes and characterizations could have been explored a lot more and made everything feel way more cohesive than it is. When I first saw Black Adam, I thought it was one of the worst movies I had ever seen. A little hyperbolic, sure, but my hatred for this movie when I walked out of the theater having just spent $15 on Dwayne's vanity project was next level. This movie was on my mind for the better part of the last 2 years. I wrote a review for this movie weeks after I had seen it, before I had even made my first YouTube video. There's something about this movie that I genuinely disliked so much that I thought it was one of the worst things ever put to screen. And then I rewatched it, and I see what this movie really is. I went on the vision quest that The Rock had. I see what this movie is going for. I think, shockingly, there's not fully redeeming qualities, but good, genuinely good story ideas here that maybe if there wasn't allegedly a contract that could make the protagonist not be the most important thing at all times and show a little bit of weakness here and there, because every time in this movie when The Rock is supposed to be weak, he kind of just flings people in the air, stops a fucking explosion, or willingly leaves for like 10 minutes. Because the JSA can't beat him, that would not go over with how The Rock does movies, allegedly. But there's a plot in here that's actually really complex. That could have been a really cool plot if it was the only one. I think what really does it is the final fight where Dr. Fate sacrifices himself. I wrote in my notes, wow, Dr. Fate really doesn't need anyone. Like, he felt like he could have taken down Satan with ease, until the movie for some reason feels the need to recreate the scene in Star Wars where Obi-Wan kills himself, and they do it here too with a less interesting character. It's probably more so going for the Iron Man sacrifice, but again, it still falls flat. The whole crown subplot doesn't really need Black Adam. Like, why am I threatened by Satan in this? Because he doesn't fucking do anything. He kills Dr. Fate because the motherfucker lets him, but after that he's easily tricked by Hawkman, and then just ripped in half and the movie fucking ends. The JSA and Hawkman specifically go from, yeah, we don't like what Black Adam is doing, to seemingly just making amends for the sake of, well, the movie's about to end. But, like, the point is the movie sacrifices, it really doesn't reach anywhere close to its potential, but it sacrifices the cool plotline for the most generic, boring, uninspired bit of bad guy becomes good? Or just whatever makes Rock look cool, I guess. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the movie should have been about the Justice Society and not Black Adam. Black Adam could have been an antagonist in the movie, but this movie should have focused primarily on the JSA. It isn't the worst thing in the world. It's a movie that has some wasted potential, but it's mostly generic. Fine, even. It's a movie about really nothing. The themes are so half-baked, like the parallels between this random family and Dwayne is whatever. It's not subtle, it's very over-the-nose with what it's trying to say, and it's a water cooler movie. It's a movie that if you were to sit down and watch it, you probably wouldn't remember it a week later. Black Adam on the DCEU scale gets a probably generous but reasonable lol, because the third act of this movie is fucking insane. That's where a lot of the brownie points come in. Like, it becomes a mid-2000s superhero movie with Dwayne charm. I mean, the Tooth Fairy is fighting Satan, and it's all just ridiculous. I think, though, what this movie did was kind of turn people off of The Rock, not just as an actor, but as a brand. We already delved into the attempt at a viral marketing campaign for the movie, but in order to tie into that sweet, sweet corporate synergy DC and Warner Brothers were all in, let's start with the Super Pets movie, starring Dwayne Johnson as Krypto. This scene is fucking hilarious to look at, as in the end, Black Adam confronts Superman, as well as Krypto being confronted by Black Adam's dog. Black Adam, in this case, is an animated version of The Rock. In this one scene, The Rock voices 3 separate characters: Black Adam, Black Adam's dog, and Krypto. The final seconds in this film is an ad for Black Adam. And yes, Marvel does this all the time. Hell, some Marvel films are ads for future Marvel films. It's a cycle that is common practice in the blockbuster realm. But it is just so funny to not only see the inverse of the actual post-credit scene in Black Adam, but this movie is completely unrelated. Targets, I think, an entirely different audience, and the powers that be, as in The Rock, thought he could get more marketing done to ensure all eyes were on this huge new project. And that project is fucking Black Adam. Listen, Black Adam, the character is neat, but it's so weird to put all your eggs in this basket. A basket that many casual viewers will have no idea who this person is. They are not familiar with the character, so we are once again hoping that The Rock can draw some at the box office, which might be why part of the ad campaign was putting The Rock everywhere, doing all sorts of social media trends and collabing with people like Mr. Beast, so that people knew that it was okay if you didn't know who Black Adam was, because The Rock is Black Adam, giving a casual audience a level of familiarity before the film is even released. Again, all of the attempts at viral marketing, I completely understand. It is a no-brainer. But how did DC decide to tie into Black Adam? By giving the entire Justice League Black Adam superpowers, of course. Movie crossover and tie-in with comics is a norm now. A norm that can be very annoying. So for the tie-in to Black Adam, it was decided that the Justice League would receive Black Adam's powers, which, like, fine, whatever, man, I guess. But the funniest part of this shit is when Black Adam randomly looks like The Rock for a single panel. This is the funniest shit I have ever seen. Don't look at me, Dwayne, you're so seductive. So in the big year of 2022, Black Adam was all over DC content, doing everything to try and sell every single audience of this film. The charts, the demographics, the verticals, whatever he was talking about in the Red One tweet. This attempt at marketing for a DC movie was like the first of its scale. It really feels like this should have come out in like 2007. We were just missing an honest-to-God video game tie-in to really go with it. So with all that said, the crazy marketing, the subpar movie, the strong-arm takeover of Black Adam at DC, how did the movie do? Black Adam didn't make its money back, unless you ask The Rock. But seriously, this movie didn't make its money back, like, at all. With a budget of anywhere between $190 to $260 million, Black Adam brought back $393 million. So at best, the movie barely lost any money. And at worst, the movie lost Warner Brothers, just based off this metric alone, $127 million. Curiously though, the movie did not release in China. If you do not know, China is the second biggest film market in the world. It is so big that a random re-release of Avatar after Endgame had passed it as the highest grossing movie of all time just so happened to make enough money to pass Endgame again. The Chinese market is a big deal, and because of it, studios kind of bend at their will. John Cena can apologize in Mandarin over something said. The Black Panther poster can be altered so that it can appease to China. Now, it is unknown exactly why it didn't release in China, but it doesn't really seem to matter. Another film that didn't release in China though, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, still grossed over $800 million, meaning it still made, with the same release restrictions as Black Adam, $400 million more. The Rock, for some reason, claims it did, though. But that's just not the truth. It is very hard to find an accurate budget, though, Dwayne. But regardless, Black Adam was a commercial failure. Another failure for the DCEU. Now, a change in hierarchy was coming, but it was coming in the form of losing the man in charge, Walter Hamada. The Walter Hamada era of DC can be summed up by the word, what? Just so directionless. Movies about hardly anything. Shit out constantly. I mean, they look so bad for some reason. There's just something generally off about all of the DCEU post-2020. So from everything, from the cringy Mr. Beast shit to the fucking cheeseburger to making a giant part of a comic story, everyone getting his powers, there was still no audience. The writing seemed to be on the wall, as in interviews on the day of release, The Rock was publicly talking about Henry Cavill's return as Superman. A true sentiment at the neediness for this to make money. But why? There had to be some sort of primary goal from Camp Rock if this movie made money. And I think I know what it is. All of this is very, guessing, just a thought in the ether, allegedly, let's say. But with how The Rock promoted Black Adam, the insistent in not just the film itself, but League of Super Pets, there was this tease of Black Adam going one-on-one with Superman. Now, as many people might know, that's not who Black Adam is usually the antagonist of. Black Adam fights Harold in the Purple Crayon, who I guess is beefing with Dwayne now, and is also maybe the most jobless man in Hollywood, but who was a character in the universe that was teased in the post-credits of his movie, and that Rock himself teased facing at one point. But it seemed like plans changed. So an important piece of info to remember, that void that losing Snyder gave DC, well, the man they replaced him with, Walter Hamada, was also on his way out. And I think, and I don't think this is crazy, Rock and his camp thought that if Black Adam proved to be a financial success, something DC was desperately needing, that Dwayne himself could single-handedly take over DC Studios. Again, Rock confirmed it was his idea to bring in Cavill's Superman.
This has been years in the making regarding bringing Henry Cavill back, and years of strategic conversations, and we were not going to take no for an answer.
He tried to act like this beacon of hope for DC fans. The Rock wanted to get on the good side of the Snyder fans because of their push to make the Snyder Cut happen. He wanted the very loyal people on his side because he was trying to stage a coup, allegedly, along with the fact that The Rock lied about the film being profitable, giving a fake estimate over what the movie made. Why would he do this? Allegedly, because he had something to gain. He wanted a part of the superhero pie. He wanted a seat at the head of the table. He wanted to run DC Studios. And well, Hamada was officially removed as the head of DC Studios shortly after Black Adam premiered. The problem? Warner Brothers hired James Gunn and Peter Safran to be the new heads and subsequently reboot the universe, and this was all knowledge while there were still 3 more movies to come from the studio, making everything not really matter in the grand scheme of the universe. So why, despite The Rock's marketability, the overall marketing campaign of this film, and the leaking of Cavill's return as Superman, why didn't this make any money? Well, obviously the overall announcement of a new DC universe headed up by Gunn and Safran didn't really help. Third, reviews of the movie were poor to say the least. And finally, Who gives a shit about Black Adam? So it's 2008, and Marvel Studios is releasing a movie about a character people don't really know about named Iron Man. The film's lead, Robert Downey Jr., was essentially on his last chance in Hollywood, and what came across on screen was a fun and unique, for the time, film telling you everything you need to know about Tony Stark and Iron Man.
There are two things I want to do. I want an American cheeseburger, and the other
That's enough of that.
is not what you think.
Showing just how charismatic the character is, having an engaging story and narrative hook throughout, and most importantly, just being a fun time. Now we look at Black Adam and we see a movie about a character no one hardly knows. Now 14 years and like 40 superhero movies since Iron Man, we see The Rock giving one of his most bland performances, whether on purpose or not, a not great final story, and a movie that is dull, and maybe the worst sin of all, unremarkable. It's with this that the two paths differ, where one would go on to garner one of the biggest success stories in Hollywood, the other would be the final nail in a coffin before an inevitable reboot. Now we're months away from said reboot with Superman Legacy. All of this Black Adam stuff is so far behind us, it will go down as one of the most batshit insane attempts of not only a takeover, but a global marketing scheme ever cooked up. Maybe that's because anything The Rock says is just funny. Like taking away his acting and just him on press tour and doing ad reads is the funniest shit in the world.
Say it again, you fucking love this.
Love the movie.
And the hierarchy in DC changes. Who the fuck talks like that? But in the end of this stupid story, what is there to learn? Like, this movie never really had an audience, I would say. The attempts to be hip with the kids can only get you so far. It's dumb. It's all very dumb. I think, though, The Rock is a very interesting figure, and how he portrays himself is something unique. I think a lot of the problems that Black Adam has isn't exactly the filmmaker's fault or even really Dwayne Johnson's fault. It's about keeping a public image and a brand that became so big, it became the person. I find The Rock to be ironically the funniest person in Hollywood. I think everything he says is fucking gold. The fact that he lies about movies making money now, seeing a cardboard cutout of him at a grocery store, I mean, this guy is fucking everywhere. Seeing his face everywhere just makes me giggle. This is the eyebrow guy, and the big guy who makes fun of Kevin Hart. I mean, it's hard for me to genuinely dislike him, ironically and sometimes unironically.
Look at you now, boy!
But ironically, this man is amazing. Bred from the carny world of professional wrestling, The Rock is as carny as they come. But he does so with a calmness about him, you know. Like, he's never publicly doing something crazy. There's no tapes of him cursing out people on set. He's not attacking paparazzi and interviewers. He's like the most media-trained personality there is, and it clearly shows. The tweet he does talking about Black Adam versus Superman is interesting because he talks about wrestling promoting. He talks about the fight between Black Adam and Superman as if it's going to happen at WrestleMania. As a kid, I was really into professional wrestling, but what I was interested in, how people convey story to an audience, how they work a fight, it's insanely interesting to me. And I think what The Rock was going for, well, actually what he basically confirmed he was going for, was promoting Black Adam versus Superman like he was fighting Stone Cold. I understand thinking that the world of Hollywood and professional wrestling are closely tied, and they are a lot alike. However, the best moments in wrestling are made because of emotion the audience has with the character. So I see what you're doing when you shoehorn a Henry Cavill Superman cameo at the end of this movie. Here's someone a portion of the audience has a connection to, and here's the big fight he can have with the big bad guy. But in wrestling, the story between the fight isn't a 2-hour epic. The Rock intertwined his two worlds trying to hijack a universe to boost his own stock, something not so dissimilar to what he would do in professional wrestling. The brand of The Rock, the spokesperson for a tequila brand, an energy drink, jungle-based movies, took a hit because he's not a guaranteed success anymore. Actually, he just didn't make a profit in the biggest genre of film in the last couple decades, so he faced a little bit of controversy. There were reports of the things he did on set, and he did what any other good politician did. He admitted some of the things and just let the others die out. He pees in bottles on set. That is confirmed.
Just saw my big bottle of pee.
And all of this is really fascinating. Like the fact that people still refer to him as The Rock, his wrestling persona, instead of Dwayne Johnson. The name put in the credits of all his movies is interesting. He's successfully made himself into a brand. It's the type of things YouTubers brag about, like when they make their shitty sports drinks and Lunchables. They're the brand, and The Rock is no different. He made a fucking shampoo. This guy doesn't have hair. He has cardboard cutouts of him with products he owns. Like, people know, oh shit, that's The Rock's energy drink. So The Rock's contract makes sense. He's not really in the movie-making world for the art of it. He doesn't want to look weak in movies because that might hurt the brand. In January of 2024, The Rock expresses a desire to make movies about humanity and explore pain. The Rock wants to become a real actor. just be Dwayne Johnson and not The Rock. I think there's an interesting dichotomy when it comes to becoming so big, you become the brand. Like, I've had my fun, but at a certain point, I get it. The Rock has a brand to protect, and that brand is himself. And whether I think any of his movies are good or not, spoiler, I don't care for really any of them, he has had a major success in Hollywood. Like, it's funny to mock The Rock for claiming Black Adam made a profit, but he's trying to save face. He has built himself up as a traditional Hollywood star, and if one movie bombs, or two, I don't know, Red One, then who's to say Hollywood won't view him as such anymore? It's the game of Jenga he's playing to keep the brand alive, to keep himself in the public conscious. Call it ego, because sure, of course it is, but there is a business reason behind it. That's why there's such a disconnect with this film and comic book fans. Black Adam is not the biggest character in the world. Let's not kid ourselves. The idea that Black Adam would become like the Thanos of the DCEU is because of The Rock. It's the wrestling mindset of let's put our top draws together. This makes sense. Superman versus Black Adam is like, well, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock. And inside the mind of The Rock, again, we can call it ego, but some stupid producers also thought this, that the way they could make money was by making The Rock a centerpiece of their universe. Harold and the Purple Crayon wouldn't have been fighting The Rock because commercially Warner Brothers and Dwayne didn't see a reason to. It wasn't about the fans of characters, it wasn't about being too faithful to source material, no, it was about money, because it always is. And instead of getting a potentially interesting movie or someone swallowing their pride and being the outright villain in a movie, we got a lackluster, funny attempt at putting The Rock, the brand, at the forefront of a universe. The problem is, when that plan doesn't work and you are proven to not be a viable brand in Hollywood anymore, what happens to you, Dwayne?
Final boss. Engage.
There is a new DC universe ahead of us, and times are quite exciting right now. I am looking forward to what Gunn and Safran have up their sleeves. I adored the Suicide Squad and love the Guardian movies, so I cannot wait to see how Gunn handles a character with so much hope around him like Superman. I cannot wait to see a new, gradual build to hopefully a Justice League movie, to see what you can do in a DC universe that isn't trying to catch up in a race. A DC universe where we don't have to play DC's greatest hits. A universe where hopefully for the first time in a long time, a comic book movie feels like a comic book. Now what about our good friend The Rock? So The Rock is a brand, right? A blow like this could only hurt the brand so much, and hurt the brand it did. See, people don't normally lie and then are disproven about whether a film is profitable. It seemed as though Dwayne had used up all of his resources. Hollywood wasn't not knocking, but they saw how he reacted when he was confronted with not being a known box office draw. So when you are multi-talented like The Rock is, having done so many different types of entertainment, where do you go from here? The Rock returned to the WWE. And The Rock didn't just return to the WWE, The Rock again attempted to hijack that shit. So here's the kind of short and sweet of the context of this. Cody Rhodes had just won the Royal Rumble, making him earn a title shot against this man, Roman Reigns. Now Cody had also won the Rumble the year prior, and was unsuccessful in beating Roman Reigns. So now with this, the writing seemed to be on the wall and Cody was going to finish his story. Except he wasn't, because at the last second of an episode of SmackDown, The Rock returned and was going to take Cody's spot. This caused a fucking outrage on the internet with wrestling fans rallying under the hashtag We Want Cody. So what happened next was maybe some of the best bit of business The Rock could pull at this time. Hollywood stars have a shelf life. It doesn't take long for the public to turn on you, and that's what was happening to The Rock. Hollywood was turning on him and he went back to the one place where he thought he had goodwill left, the WWE. And the fans turned on him too for attempting the same stuff he did while he was at DC, hijacking a story and making it all about him. Except he was also semi-successful in doing this, having just become a board member of WWE's parent company, TKO. But this pivot, this change they were about to do, would not only save the Rock face, but also the WWE face. With this slap, The Rock went on to do one of the most entertaining runs I have ever seen. From 20-minute Twitter videos ranting about Cody's dog,
call him shithead,
to 30-minute segments where he's in the ring calling the crowd crackheads, The Rock became the villain and once again was in the public eye this time. I mean, he still won, but it was a good thing. It was genuinely good. Being the entertainer he is so gifted as, watching him have fun and make fun of people was some of the best stuff I have seen from him. There wasn't some complete power grab, kind of. It was just telling the most compelling story you possibly could, culminating in, I guess, The Rock doing an A24 film. Alright. And Red One, and oh boy, another fucking stinker from Dwayne. Maybe it's time for just a little Rock break. No more water cooler movies for a little bit. What do you say, Rock? But it was this moment where the bad will toward The Rock, the want for him to just go away, that feeling, that went away. What The Rock was able to accomplish in his short stint back in WWE, well, it brought out the inner child in me. The wrestling fan I was back because the actor I couldn't really stand was doing some of the most entertaining stuff I had ever seen in wrestling. And it's all because of Black Adam.
The best thing for them to do is to know their role, shut their mouth, and enjoy the ride that The Rock is taking them on.